Dearly redheaded, we are choosing consciousness today to get through this thing called grief. Interesting word, grief. It means love, which makes for a mighty good joke, but I'm here to tell you, there's nothing else. Just joy. And if the big picture tends to bring you down, go crazy once your life goes. Woo!
Hello, I'm back. Natural born redhead. It's been about a year and a half since I've done a podcast. I started with vigor and enthusiasm about a year and a half ago, and I was facing the loss of my mother and best friend, and really decided to focus on her. She subsequently passed in May of 24, and I've taken the last year to grieve, to enjoy solitude, and to figure out what the fuck I was going to do when I started talking to you people again. So, before I get into about me, I was moved today by one of my gurus. I have a lot of them, both alive and dead. This person happens to be very much alive, Jeff Foster. This was his post from this morning. From spiritual bypass to holy realness, there is a spirituality that seems untouchable, always calm, always wise, always unemotional, never suffering. Like pristine poetry, smooth, symmetrical, untouched by chaos, beautiful to look at, but lifeless in the hands. No cracks, no fingerprints, no blood, just repressive silence posing as peace. And beneath it, a terrible fear. Fear of mess, fear of grief, fear of being fully human, fear of intimacy. I know I hid there once too. I thought peace meant rising above heartbreak, longing, trauma, hiding out in pure awareness like a zombie. But life did not let me escape. Grief came anyway. Shame, rage, doubt. Not to punish me, but to finally liberate me. True peace did not come from avoiding my humanity, and only came when I turned toward it. When I let myself be cracked open. When I surrendered and found God, I would add source, I would add spirit in the wreckage. I do not seek a polished spirituality anymore, not the kind that bypasses trauma, not the kind that mistakes emotional numbness for wisdom. I seek trembling, I seek the body, the nervous system, the sensuality and raw truth of each sacred moment. In the end, life shatters every dogma, even the dogma called non-dual awareness. What remains is the holy mess. So that crossing my desk this morning was how I wanted to start with y'all. I'm a very introverted person, diagnosed many moons ago on the autistic spectrum. I have an ADHD kicker, so I guess that's why I'm here. I had a spiritual awakening in 2022 that led me to a place that led me here to spare others grief and to incite joy. I'm now 55. I started to do stand-up many moons ago. It was a comic relief, quite frankly, to deal with knowing my marriage was falling apart and having a son on the spectrum that was starting to be brutalized within the educational system. And between the two things, I got up on stage and found some solace, but also didn't stay there long because I wanted to raise my kids. And as you already know, then take care of my mother. So kids are raised, mom's gone, and like I said, a fresh start. I'd encourage you to check out my podcasts from a year and a half ago. I'm not going to run them all, but one in particular with my mother. and then one in particular with a former spiritual guide. They'll tell you a lot. My website will tell you a lot too. Natural Born Redhead, one word. It needs to be updated. I'll get there. You can also reach out to me via email, and I'll tell you the address as soon as I find it. It's naturalborn.redhead23@gmail. So as a result of today's podcast, I'd love you to reach out with an insight, a question, a one-liner. I'm filthy dirty, but it's not because I intend to shock anybody. It's just how I learned a long time ago to express myself. I think it's important to have you realize that part of my calling is to balance the energies between men and women. I think there's, just like many other things we can point to in society and culture today, there's just so many things that divide us. And I think the energy between men and women has long been distant, and we need to find our ways back to one another. And I don't mean specifically men and women. I'm not trying to isolate anybody. I embrace non-binary in particular because of the way we experience sharing and learning about one another's energy. I'm very guided by male energy, always have been, to a fault. Many of my gurus are men. And I think I have plenty of female gurus too, and I'll get to that. But I'd like to see men more comfortable being guided by women. That's why we're here. It's the purpose of the womb, so to speak, and I don't mean that in any derogative way whatsoever. If we can protect a man's heart and his emotions, then it's more reciprocal for what divine feminine is looking for. How the hell did this happen? Well, I learned recently, and I mean recently, that I had a very dissociative upbringing. Things happened in my childhood that I'll get to. I don't necessarily want to go here right now. But it took me 10 concerted years of working through complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, to figure things out, to understand the magnitude of what had happened to me in the context of alcohol, the people I loved, the people that I thought loved me, just a real indoctrination into the human experience. I don't know how else to put it, because I don't want to make it sound like, my journey was particularly paralyzing. It paralyzed me, but it's nothing compared to other journeys. I will say that I had an experience about a year ago that almost did me in. And had it not been for the 10 years of work I had done prior, I probably wouldn't have gained perspective. I don't mean to be cryptic, but we're here together for at least the next 6 months, because that's a commitment we made. I'm working with Conversion Works in Wilkes-Barre. Have some nice support from a handful of people that understand what I'm trying to do. I hope that in your morning or afternoon commute, you will hear my voice. We will address topics based on psychology, spirituality, neurology, neurology, my favorite, and comedy. I have always been deeply devoted to comedy, and I didn't realize it. I didn't know how important it would come to be. It was just an instinct between having two very comedic parents, dark. My father was dark. My mother was in the closet until she was much older. I don't think she told me a dirty joke until I was in my first year of college. And then it was a great experience, but it was also one of those experiences where, I had felt like I had been hatched until she shared the extent of her perverse sense of humor with me. And again, story for another time. I intend to talk about her a lot. Just to give you an idea of my sense of humor, I'll always call myself filthy dirty. If you go to the website or you go to YouTube, Natural Born Redhead, you'll see stand-up from 15 years ago. I would say my sense of humor is largely the same. I've gotten dirtier, but not to be able to say fuck, cock, cunt, but to be able to get these concepts across that ultimately are meant to bring men and women, human beings, closer to one another. I have no intention of isolating. I'm pretty good at being able to talk about most things. I can make most things funny. I can make horrible things funny. I reflect on Louis C.K. His sense of humor was compared to mine years ago, and at first I was really fucking insulted. And then I was like, ooh, he's got a lot of respect for what he's able to do comedically. And then he kind of made a wrong turn in Albuquerque, and I'm not going to talk about that today, but ultimately that taught me too, because what happened to him was happening to a lot of people, whether it is in their workplace or in life. Again, not meaning to be cryptic, but if you're familiar with comedians, I'm sure you know what I'm trying to say. And again, I'll go there too. So I have to say something that it's going to make me cry, but I have to say it. When you have a strong voice and it's been squelched most of your life, there comes a point where not using it becomes more paralyzing than using it. So there's two men on the planet. Their nicknames are Dicklick and Cocksuck, and they are my sons. And I just want them to know that nothing I do is to make their lives more complicated. To the contrary, I've worked very hard, sometimes very misguided, to make their lives easier. And by no means anything that I do or say is meant to make things more complicated. So I have their blessing, ironically, with my comedy. And I have their blessing in ways that I hope I understand correctly to do some other things. I have one of their blessings to talk about them as long as they are Dicklick. And I don't use his real name. So for the way my brain works, Dicklick is much easier than trying to call him Phil or Scott or Fred. And I'm going to do the best I can to honor them, but at the same time, talk about what worked and what didn't, and parenting them. I'm very glad I had sons. Always wanted a daughter. Very glad I had sons. I was a daughter, so I kind of got that journey, the male journey, for me, taught me so much about what men go through, what they have gone through historically, multi-generationally. I'll talk about what was so challenging about raising them in this particular generation, being ahead of the curve in ways, being on the spectrum. I think many of us are claircognizant. So we know things. Doesn't mean we don't get derailed. I would say that of my ADHD counterparts too. Damn good argument if anybody wants to have it. So the unfolding of the week. I think Mondays and Tuesdays will be a little more intense. I'll start to lighten things up by your Wednesday commute into Thursday, and then Friday I want to go to the gutter. I want to talk about things I want to talk about sex. I want to talk about relationships. I want to talk about things that live in the dark, that need the light. And I want to have a good time. I want to have a good time. Was I clear? Brian is helping me out from Conversion Works. I lied to you. I have no concept of how much time has gone by. So how much time is
We're doing well. We're at 17 minutes.
We're at 17 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Is that what that was?
That's it.
No pain involved, right?
No.
None. So going to take a minute to look at my notes. I think I'll speak about my spiritual awakening. It was 2022. It was March 28th. Pain had broken through the brain barrier, gone into my body. I imagined at the time that this must be what fibromyalgia feels like. It was just something that came to me because I had no explanation for the pain in my body. I had a reason for it, but I didn't have an explanation. At the time, I had been sedating with alcohol for about 18 years. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a serial sedator. That's something that will actually come up in next week's podcast. I have a guest. We're going to talk about the difference between alcoholism and serial sedation, especially amongst women, because we are women. So I remember, and I was using substance, not enough to make me altered beyond my lifelong experience with dissociation. Many of us are dissociated. I think it's a word that Carl Jung used to put on the map. Carl's my buddy, man. I intended to talk about him in this first episode. I think we'll go to the second at this point. And I prefer to call him Carl versus Jung because it's easier to remember. I think he's a standalone. So I didn't know what to do. So I found myself soaking in the tub for a couple nights just to ease the pain in my body. And I can remember leaning forward to drain the water. I leaned back and I went out. I think I was out between 4 and 5 hours. I came out of it, and all I can tell you is I was the same person, but it was a clearing of my unconsciousness, a clearing of my dissociation. And I was led to not drink. I consciously toasted my last cocktail. I can drink, and I have had cocktails since then. That's another story. I'll save it probably for next week so I don't have too much dementia on this podcast. I was led to not eat meat. I can eat meat. Led away from caffeine, sugar. I became a softer soul, which is my soul. I had a low tolerance for violence, news, and that sort of was rejuvenated in me, if that makes sense. And it was the beginning of many, many things that I won't get into today. I think I'm going to stop. We're in a good place. And give me a few minutes. I'm going to come back with Tuesday and start with Carl. And if you don't know who Carl is, you will, soon, very soon. I feel certain. Thank you.
Thank you for listening and supporting Natural Born Redhead. If you follow the bouncing balls, please like and subscribe. If you know someone interested in sparing others grief and inciting joy, message me on Facebook or reach out via my website, Natural Born Redhead. J-Ma.